Hi, I'm Steve Hayes, and I'm a pastor, and I'm a sinner. And I love stories. I love to hear people's stories. I love to hear how God has worked in their lives to help change them and make them who they are. And I think we all need to hear those kinds of stories. So I hope you'll enjoy it and listen along with This Is My Story.
I'm Nick Pomeroy, and this is my story.
All right, everybody, we are here with Nick Pomeroy. And Nick and his wife, April, they've become a big part of our ministry here at Grace. They do a great job helping with our children. And people who help with your children are like gold, man. So thank y'all for everything you've done there. But Nick, they're just interesting people. They've got a lot of things going that are... I don't know, not your average, everyday kind of person does the kind of things that they do. Like your wife does a ministry in Africa. She runs a coffee shop, and you run a business for farm equipment. Now, that has always interested me about you because when I first met you, I would have never guessed that you were in a business that sold and dealt in farm equipment. Are you a farmer? Did you know about all this stuff when you got into this? Tell us a little bit about your journey with this business.
So first off, I think the word you were looking for is crazy. We're crazy people. It takes a certain level of craziness to do the things that we do. And second off, my wife is the true angel in this. She's the one who has the ministry, and I just do the best I can to support her. She's really got a heart for serving. And
she's pretty awesome.
So for me, farm equipment kind of started, I guess, as early as I can remember, just playing with farm tractors. I was always interested in the machinery, the big machines, the tilling the dirt, cutting wheat and all that. My grandparents, both sides, were into farming to a certain degree. And so spending the summers there and helping out, as soon as I was old enough to not even old enough, but as soon as I was old enough to drive a truck, kind of get involved with that. But at some point, it dawned on me that probably farming wasn't going to be a profitable venture just because I wasn't really born into a large operation and I didn't marry into one. Right. So therefore, it kind of lends itself to, I just kind of went towards the direction of the equipment, which is my true passion anyway. I just love tractors. If anybody who knows me or spends much time with me, we're probably going to end up talking about tractors. So that's how we kind of got here.
You've always been that way?
I've basically always been that way. I love machinery things. I actually, most of my career, I've been a mechanic and I've worked on these things. And it wasn't, it was probably 10, 12 years of fixing equipment before I kind of started progressing up into other avenues. When we opened the dealership was my first experience with selling the equipment. So that's right. Relatively new to me. But yeah, I've always been interested in tractors and farm equipment and mowers and just, mechanical things.
Right. And you do like lawnmowers. I think those zero-turn lawnmowers are really cool.
Yeah.
Do you get out on those and pop wheelies and like drive them around and stuff, test them out?
I believe my lawyer said it. No, I do not. No. Yeah,
that's what I would be doing out there all the time.
We have way too much fun, and this is where my wife likes to rein me back in, because we have way too much fun with this equipment. Mm-hmm. I enjoy driving it, and yes, I've never popped a wheelie.
Yeah. How fast do those things go? That your top end one? How fast?
13 miles an hour.
Oh, that's it.
That's it. But believe it or not, that's pretty quick on a zero turn. And I think what's impressive about them is the amount of torque. And it used to be a big lawnmower was like at 25 horsepower. Right. Now we're pushing 40, right? The amount of torque and it's pretty impressive and a lot of fun. We really enjoy ourselves.
Very cool. Very cool. So. It has not been the most direct route for you. What age were you when you got into this business?
So I guess, I did the farming a little bit in school, and I went to after high school, college. I had some hiccups. I'm sure we'll talk about that, but I kind of got into some situations where college wasn't really an option, and so I I kind of went towards the equipment business maybe when I was like 19. I was working for my dad, and that didn't really pan out for various reasons. Me, really. I'm the reason. But anyway, that didn't really work out. And so I jumped into actually started out washing tractors, right? Because I didn't have any experience. So I was probably about 18, 19 when I started into this business. Yeah.
Right. It wasn't the most direct route. You ended up getting in some trouble. You ended up becoming introduced to drugs, and they kind of got a hold of you. So talk a little bit about, when did you first experiment with drugs, and what was that journey like?
Oh man, so I think it would probably be, I guess I'd have been 15.
Okay.
Still in high school. That's when you're experimenting with different things, and tried smoking weed, and
Okay.
that's kind of where it started. And then it just kind of, for me, it kind of spiraled out of control. And within a year or so, I was already beginning to get in trouble. I had some issues with law enforcement even as a minor, and it just kind of, continued throughout most of my adult life.
Yeah. When did you ever realize along that way that it had a hold of you?
Yeah. So for me, it was, it started with, maybe what would be considered less hard drugs, right? And it quickly progressed to, meth.
Right.
And it really, really took a hold on me, pretty much right off the bat. But there's a progression, and I think anybody probably goes through the same progression of first off, realizing it's a problem. For the first few years, it wasn't a problem. I was just having fun. I was a young child, 19, 20, 21. But I started making these promises with myself, like, okay, I'm just going to do this until the end of the new year. And once I turn 21, I'm done.
Right.
And you only have to fail so many of those promises before you start to think this could be a bit of an issue. And I think where it really began to shine is when the major trouble started happening, and I still was unable to turn loose of the drugs.
Did you exhibit the kind of behaviors that sometimes we hear about, bugging your family about money, those kinds of things? Did you just turn into a whole different person?
Yes and no. And that's the thing. Not everybody, when I say meth addict, not everybody looks like, the stereotypical meth addict. But yes, I was a mess. And yes, I think where I really bugged my family was not so much for the drugs, but I spent the money that I had on drugs. So then
Right.
I was like, well, I got to have money to pay the truck payment, or you get your mother to co-sign a loan when you're 18, and you make really good money, or at least good money for that age, and still can't pay your truck payment. So then you got to get help out of that situation. And so I think, yes, I mean, to your point, I was definitely a burden on family. And yeah, I wasn't a very good person. I did a lot of things that hurt a lot of people, family, friends, people I didn't even know. It kind of comes with the territory, but that's the truth is I wasn't a good person for a long time at all.
Yeah. Did you hit, you always hear about this kind of proverbial rock bottom. What was rock bottom for you?
So, and it's funny, and I think this transition happens with a lot of folks. You feel like you've hit rock bottom maybe a couple times before you actually do.
Okay.
So I guess it would be, I'd probably been maybe 27, 28 when I first started getting in real trouble. I was given a golden opportunity to get out of trouble. It was a diversion for a felony that I had picked up, along with some other charges, but I had a felony, and that was the first felony, and I had this golden opportunity to diversion, and I couldn't even make it the first week passing the first drug test, right? That's part of the diversion program, is you had to pass the drug test. I couldn't even make it the first week, and so immediately, you went through a lot of hoops to get on the diversion, and I burned it up like that. It just speaks to the powerlessness, but so for me, that was kind of the first oh no moment, right? there was a few others though that felt like rock bottom, but the true rock bottom was, I guess, about 5 years ago. I was married at the time, and that was rock bottom when I mean, just bluntly, my wife caught me using again. And I had gotten to a point where I was so spiritually and emotionally and just physically broken that I had prayed. I couldn't stop on my own. I've never been that guy. And so I prayed out. I just wanted to be stopped. You reach a point at which you just expect to die an addict, right? You reach a point where kind of this point of no return, and you lose all hope, right? And it's just, you're crushed, and you're just bankrupt. I mean, it's incredibly taxing on someone when you get to that point and you don't know how to escape the situation, but you're just broken, and so I would pray, and at first it was like I would try to find an easy way out. I always wanted the easy way out. I always wanted to do it myself. I always thought if I just do it this way, right, or maybe if I just go this way, or I'll stop doing that, or I'll stay away from this, or I always thought that I could find what a lot of times is referred to as an easier, softer way. And it got to a point where I didn't even care if it was easier and softer. I didn't care how hard it was. I honestly didn't care if I went back to prison. I had to find a way to stop, and it wasn't on my own. And I was unable. I got so good at being a liar, I guess, that I was unable to even reach out for help. I was so, wrapped up in this idea of keeping this front, right? So I was a chameleon, I was trying to keep this front up for everybody around me, that they could see that I still had it together, I had a job, everything was good. And I was so wrapped up in the idea of keeping that face, keeping that lie alive, that I was unable to reach out for help. I mean, but it got to a point I was just like, I think I accepted the fact that, my life would come crumbling down and I would die an addict. I really do. It got that bad.
And then your wife, who I'm sure at some point when y'all met and y'all knew that you were in love with each other, did you think that was your way out, that was kind of your salvation from this?
Well, so, and there's been periods throughout my life where I've had some time, right? Like, you get out of prison, I had some time.
Right.
I did some things right for short periods of time. And so one of the first things, it was, I think, my wife and I's second date. I told her the whole thing. I told her the whole situation. And I even told her, like, be careful, because I know me, right? But we had that discussion, but I don't know that I ever truly thought that we would come full circle back to that point. I don't know.
You thought you were good.
Yes, cautiously optimistic, I think would be a better word. But yeah, you think you've gotten far enough along, but the truth is, anytime you start thinking you're doing it yourself is when you fail.
So, did you grow up in a family of faith? Did y'all go to church and things like that?
Yeah, so I guess yes and no. I knew of God. Grew up in a Catholic faith. There were some years where we did really good, and some years it was Christmas and Easter. I knew of God, but I did not know God.
Okay.
I had no relationship.
When did that change? When did you come to see that Jesus was the answer for you?
So I think, for me, it was kind of a process, right? At some point along the way, I realized that I was incapable. I had failed enough times on my own that I had, and there's so many times when I prayed out and I was like, if you'll just get me out of this mess, the old foxhole prayer, if you'll just get me out of this one situation, I'll change. And I think God knew that I wasn't going to change, and I wasn't. So, but at some point along the way, I come to my understanding that I didn't have the power. I didn't have the ability. I was going to go to the grave using drugs. So it's kind of, I started to build a relationship, and it's kind of like you can watch the trend is like when I'm walking with God, life is a lot better, right? When you're walking with God, life gets so much better. And for me, but I think when I really knew was when I hit rock bottom, and I didn't have a choice. I couldn't do it on my own, and I began to put my faith in God, who I didn't really know. I'm still learning a lot about.
Right.
But I began to put my faith in God and rely on Him 100%. I would not be sitting here today if it weren't for just complete reliance. Early on and still to this day. But when you're first trying to get off, to get clean, it is incredibly hard. Especially, I think all drugs are really hard. I'm sure some are worse than others, but for me, it was I bet I prayed 200 times a day. Just please remove this craving. Just let me have 5 more minutes. So
I think the people who have the most true walk with Jesus are the people who realize that He is not just here to save your soul. He's here to save your life.
I would agree with that. And to be honest with you, for me, I think at the time I could care less about the soul. I just wanted a life. At the time it was more about, can you save my life?
Yeah. Man, what an incredible story. And now you're 5 years removed from drug use. Do you still think about it?
Yeah, from time to time. And you can usually follow a track record of are you doing the things that you're supposed to be doing? But yeah, from time to time. But it's like fleeting thoughts. It's like what I see is I see so many people around me that struggle with this, and you look at it, the longer I'm removed, the harder it is to relate. But it's important to relate with those people.
Yeah.
But I see it. I live in a community where there's plenty of drug use, and you can look around any corner and see the effects of it. And it's not hard to spot when you've been down that road, right? So do I think about it? Yes, but it's not like it's not cravings. It's like you almost you wish you had the answer,
Yeah.
But
your relationship with your wife through this, there was obviously a time where there was some trust lost. How was that trust regained?
There's really only one way trust is, I think, you ever regained, and that's time.
Yeah.
It's not a light switch. I crushed her. I crushed my wife. But the truth is, it takes time.
Yeah. It
takes time and doing the right things, and it's not easy. It's a messy process. It's an ugly process, and if you try to rush it, it's not real. And some of those wounds may never heal. But we've been fortunate enough to keep on moving forward, and we have an amazing son, a son who has never seen me high, and that's important to me. We just keep pushing forward, and our relationship has definitely changed. But time heals,
Yeah.
And doing the right thing matters. That's what matters is, time is fine, but where are you at, that from day to day,
Yeah. Yeah. And having a child, I'm sure, makes a difference for you, because there's something about a child that makes you want to be at your best.
There is, but you really have to be careful. For any addict, anytime you think that something is going to prevent you from going back out, you will lose that thing.
Yeah.
Whether it be a child or a wife, and I've lived that. So anything you put before recovery is going to be lost. I love, Toby's awesome. I love Toby to death. But the truth is, he's I've got to be very careful, because I've seen so many people that have lost their kids and whatnot. So, yeah, it's just a great thing to have a child that looks up to you and be able to live a life that I can be proud of.
You're now somewhat removed from that. You're by all measures, all accounts, you're a success. You're in a strong marriage. You're a dad. You have a business that is successful. People kind of look to you now. Did you ever think that you'd be living that reality?
I'm actually thinking, people look to me. So, I guess
I'm looking to you now. I mean, it's it's awesome.
No, I honestly thought this. Like I say, you get to this point of hopelessness, and you believe all those positive outcomes are no longer for you. Or you think your ceiling has been lowered.
Yeah.
You think when you try to go out in the world and get a job with a felony. And I remember getting out of prison and trying to look for a job with a felony. It's not easy. So you begin to accept that your limit has been lowered, right? Like you no longer is the sky the limit. Maybe now like the ceiling is, right? You accept that, and that's a lie. That's a lie that we tell ourselves. Yeah. I've found all along the way people have been put in my life that have encouraged me and shared that with me. But we are blessed. Man, I just can't even think. Every day I just wake up and think for all the struggles, for all the challenges, for all of my failures. I mean, I'm still on a daily basis. I fail in so many areas of my life. I'm not always a great husband. Mm-hmm. I'm certainly not always the best dad. There are so many things that I fail out, but every single day is a blessing. And when I keep that gratitude, it goes a long way.
Last question. What does the grace of God mean to you? After all you've experienced, after being at the bottom, what does it mean that you know God and that He reached down to you?
To me, it's imperative. It's not easy to walk in, to church or just into a relationship with God coming from such an ugly place. Coming ugly person. Yeah. God doesn't see us like that. But I was broken. I was ugly. I'd done lots and lots of horrible things. So to know that it's that He accepts me as I am, and see, it's amazing. Like if it wasn't that way, it wouldn't work.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Man, incredible story, and thank you for having the honesty to share it with us. There are so many people out there who are dealing with things like this, and they think God's done with them. They think that their life is over. You were there. And what would you say to those people?
I think the biggest message that I can ever share with any addict who's still actively in the midst of things is just the hope. Mm-hmm. It can and will get better. It won't be easy. It will be hard. There are people that will help you. There are people God will put in your life to help you. And somebody told me, just do the next right thing, right? Mm-hmm. I'm here to help. I know lots of people that would be glad to help you in your story. But it does get better, and there is hope. And that's, I think, probably the paramount part of this entire thing is that no matter how far down you've gone, there's always a way up. Yeah. Always a way up.
Man. Great message of hope, man. Thank you so much for sharing your story with me. Thanks for being real about it. And I think God's going to use it in a big way. I appreciate you, Nick.
Yep.
If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe. And if you'd like to spread the word, please consider leaving a 5-star review and tell your friends to subscribe too. Our video podcast is available on our Grace Community Church YouTube channel. This Is My Story is produced and engineered by Jake Moore and is a ministry of Grace Community Church in Corsicana, Texas. The views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the speaker and do not necessarily express the views of Grace Community Church. Thanks for listening.